so many people leave our offices and leave the healthcare feeling really powerless after encounters with doctors. And it really takes a whole revolution to build a new system that is rooted in consent instead of compliance. So I think that's what motivated me to write this book, and my own experience with how consent has been defined and what we do day in and day out.
Hey there, fellow nerds. Welcome to another episode of The Present Illness, the podcast where two physicians try to make sense of a world that's a little febrile and definitely underdiagnosed. I'm Arghavan Salles, a surgeon scientist and your friendly neighborhood doom scroller in residence.
And I'm Alyssa Burgart, an anesthesiologist and bioethicist who tracks news and health law like their EKGs, full of spikes and surprises. The Present Illness is where we dig into public health, politics, culture, and ethics with a scalpel in one hand and a meme in the other. As a note to our listeners, we often talk about topics that can be intense, activating, and can be a lot.
Big thank you to everyone who's listening, with extra love to our subscribers and those who follow us on any of our various platforms. And a special warm welcome today to our guest, Dr. Zed Zha, a family medicine physician and author from Washington State.
Yay!
Thank you for having me. Before we start, I wanted to make sure I thank you guys, both of you, for blurbing my book, Consented. You guys are like professional troublemakers in medicine. That's what I've decided. And I'm glad you said for the world that's a little febrile because, I think we might be a little risk factor out there ourselves.
Well, that is high praise coming from you because I think that I really look up to you and the work that you've been doing. So we're really thrilled to have you talking about your book, Consented, A Doctor's Call to End Medical Violence and Reclaim Patient Autonomy. Those are topics that are close to Arghavan and I's hearts. What inspired you to write this incredible book?
I think so many people leave our offices and leave the healthcare feeling really powerless after encounters with doctors. And it really takes a whole revolution to build a new system that is rooted in consent instead of compliance. So I think that's what motivated me to write this book, and my own experience with how consent has been defined and what we do day in and day out that's so intrinsic and so invasive that ultimately takes away people's bodily autonomy in so many insidious ways. Really got me thinking about what consent really means and what the lack thereof has cost all of us.
Yeah, can you give maybe an example or two just for our listeners? Obviously, Alyssa and I have both read what you've written, so we have context for what you're saying. But I think a lot of folks might hear consent and think about, surgical procedures or something like that. But you're actually talking about consent much more broadly. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about what you're referencing and a couple examples, maybe?
Yes, thank you for asking. Yeah, that's a great clarifying question. I think, when we talk about consent, we often think about that signature on that piece of paper that you submit, you scan into the medical record. But really what I'm arguing in this book is that consent is a trust-building process that starts way before the patient steps into our offices. So it starts when you click into the patient's chart and start reviewing their chart, and it ends way after they leave our offices. So the whole process is an ongoing process of trust building. It's far more than just a signature on a form. Maybe I'll share why I started to think about consent and why how I discovered that I am part of a harmful culture of medicine. So I think we all recall before medical school, we were these really wholesome, radically accepting feminists, awesome people. And then we did all these schoolwork, but also we did all these community volunteer work. We did all this leadership work. We were set out to save lives and change the world and radically help people and accept everyone. And then something happens in our medical practice, medical training, that chips away a little bit of our soul and makes us a little bit more callous than the day before. And then one day we wake up to become a totally different person than we really set out to be. That was sort of my experience. So I was a third year medical student, and first clinical rotation, because we, first, second year of my medical school mainly spent in the classrooms. So first ever like real world experience in medicine, OBGYN rotation. Of course, we love the OBGYN doctors. They are like, a lot of them are in the front line fighting for patient bodily autonomy. But historically, OBGYN has seen the stereotypical like violation of bodily autonomy in a historically rooted way. So in my experience, I was this young medical student in my early 20s, and wearing a short white coat, which meant I had no power and no say in whatsoever. And I was following my attending, who was seeing a young woman who's maybe a few years younger than me, alone by herself, and it was her 39-week checkup. And without explaining too much, the patient was told to dress down and, um, you know, uh, ba- basically take their underwear off and then have a paper thin drape over their legs, get ready for a cervical exam, without explaining to her what the cervical check really means and why does she need it. So she had no idea what to expect. And of course, I'd never met her before in this rotation. So I walk in to a half naked young woman who I met for the first time, which was like just so weird, right? But in medicine, it is totally normal. So we walk in, and my attending step on gloves and start to do the vaginal exam. And basically was like, okay, lay down, scoot back, relax, open your legs, relax your legs, and firing these commands at the patient, who just was like stunned. And the exam, of course, didn't go well because the patient didn't know what to expect. And so it was very painful. And of course, like a first time young woman who's never had a baby vaginal birth before, this was a really difficult check. And multiple times the patient, with her words verbally and also with her actions, so non-verbally, multiple times withdrew consent to this procedure. So she said, ouch, right? And then she said, stop. And then she closed her legs. And these are all ways to say no. Like, what happened to no means no, right? So instead of stopping, my attending used his elbow to like hold down the leg so that the exam can keep going. And then instead of saying, we should stop and assess like what's happening, what can we do to make her more comfortable, he said, almost done. This is the moment that happened to a lot of patients, as if their protest and their verbal and nonverbal withdrawal of consent and whatever their experience and the traumatic experience they're going through is not something that their body and their mind will come to remember for the rest of their lives, but a task at hand for us. As if their word no doesn't mean stop, doesn't mean I withdraw my consent, but it means do it faster, right? Like that's what we hear. So that was the first time when I was, I was a young woman as a feminist, and I was like, this is not right. This can't be what we do. And I was in this like trauma response. So I was kind of frozen myself and I didn't say anything. But I did remember telling myself, I'm not going to grow up like this. I'm going to grow up to be a totally different attending. I'm going to do things differently. Fast forward a few more years, and this is after medical school residency, and then like a couple years of practicing. I was young country doctor with a really full practice. I was seeing like 35, 40 patients a day, and during the pandemic, and I was teaching medical students, teaching residents, I was supervising physician assistants. I had a patient in labor, and I was on call that day, and then I'm like, I want to do something. So I go into the room, a 21-year-old patient, young woman who was about to have her first ever pap smear. And the way she was sitting, I could tell she was nervous. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be a long visit. Because what I was thinking was how many things I had to do that day. And so I thought I was doing like the right thing and feminist approach. And I told her about like, this is what the speculum looks like. This is what I'm going to do. And this is what it sounds like when I open it. And I went through all the steps. But as the speculum went in, of course, she tensed up. And then she said, ouch. And then she said, stop. Right. What did I do? I didn't stop. I didn't withdraw the speculum. What I said was, relax your butt. I'm almost done. That was the moment when I realized that I became exactly whom I said I wasn't going to become. I was now whom I vowed to not become. And that's the moment where I realized I was part of the problem. And this is a culture of consent, of non-consent that I am perpetuating if I don't say anything differently.
Such a powerful moment too, to be in that moment doing the procedure and having anticipated this. You anticipated it as a young trainee. And I think we think that. We think, oh, I'm never going to be like this. I'm going to remember who I want to be. And yet it's that constant exposure to the toxicity in medicine, to the ways that patients are routinely dismissed. And I think a lot of us have been in that position where you get to the point where you actually do have the authority and you go, wait a minute, how did I end up here? I thought that I was going to be different. And I feel like you've really beautifully articulated in the book, that process of saying, oh, who am I going to become now?
Yeah. Who did I set out to become, and why am I not that person today? Like, what happened to me that made me not that person? And I think, so many people feel disempowered. Patients feel like they don't have a voice, which is largely true because we create this artificial like power dynamic and hierarchy that makes sure that patients feel disempowered. And we use, like we label them all these things, and the resistance means that they're non-compliant, means they're difficult, they're dramatic, they're self-sabotage, all these words that we throw at people. We make sure that they're disempowered. And I feel like the only way for us to do something to rebalance that power is to invite people to see us as human beings too, fellow humans who've gone through trauma. And medical education itself can be that trauma. And I want to be vulnerable in my book, tell the story of who I was and who then I became and who I'm trying to unbecome and then now becoming, so that I invite people to witness my growth and my own self implication in the culture that I have come to define as harmful. And that I feel like that's the vulnerability and authenticity. They're the only ways for us to be in the same room, facing each other, find our ways back to each other again. And I want to write a book where I tell patient stories, but I tell patient stories in a way that I hold their stories with gentleness and with care and with love. And in exchange, I hope that my readers hold my story and my transformation and my growth, or maybe the lack thereof, my mistakes, with the same care and love. And that's the only fair exchange.
I love that. I think a lot about um, the forces that are at play in medicine, including, you alluded to like the number of patients you were having to see in a day. And one of the things that I've observed over time is that in the healthcare encounter, it's us and it's the patient. It's not
Yes.
the administrators, it's not the insurance companies. We're the two in the encounter itself, and we are constrained in terrible ways that leads to patients having a lot of negative experiences. So the two parties that are involved in the actual encounter itself, I think for different reasons, both sides are pretty unhappy a lot of the time.
Yes.
And yet neither of us, neither side has the power to make the changes that would allow us, for example, as physicians, to be able to provide more human-centered care and to have more time and to be able to listen to people more. And it's so frustrating to me because the ones who see it on both
Mhm.
sides with the patients and us, we see why everything is so problematic the way that our healthcare system is structured right now. Yet neither side really has the power to change it because so much is dictated by these insurance companies and the
Yes.
administrators.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share with our audience what we can be doing differently within our power.
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying. And I think that like it's so important for people to know that we are equal part frustrated, equal part like hurt and traumatized. Unfortunately, we are the face of healthcare. People like the healthcare system is like today, our healthcare system is designed in a way that confuses people. Like we're intentional, like the powers that are out there, the parties that truly benefit from people being sick are the ones who make sure that everyone's confused about how healthcare works, right? So no one knows how it works. The only thing they know is that we are the ones who are doing stuff, prescribing things and not giving things. And so I was recalling this incident where recently I was on the phone call with insurance company agent. Of course, you know how it is, and prior authorization, right? Like the pain of our existence, of my existence for sure. And so I get this denial. I'm trying to appeal this denial, and then after like a long conversation, it turns out the insurance agent doesn't think that I have the credential to prescribe the medicine they denied. Well, first of all, prior authorization is this weird concept of like we have to ask for permission in advance to do the work that like we know how to do, right? And now then they're like, oh, we probably like should see your credential. So they asked to see my credential, right? And I was like, so then my staff had to fax over my like graduation certification or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should see your credential. Like, who am I talking to? Like, where did you like? I'm this isn't like me gaslighting someone. It's like, where did you go to medical school? I'm serious. Like, where? Like, what? Who are you? Like, what do you do?
Well,
just,
they won't even tell you their name.
They always are, and they'll say some generic first name. Was like, I don't know. Okay, Bob. Like, what's going on? And so I got so frustrated during that process, and that was like, of course, that has to be also like you didn't have time to do this, right? So during lunch hour, like I have a whole day of whole morning seeing patients. During lunch hour, spend a whole hour on the phone getting frustrated. Now, what do you feel? How do you feel? You feel like you're so spent. Then you have this whole afternoon to see patients, right? And then what happens is your frustration bleeds over your patient encounters. Like you get short, you get angry, you get tired, and your lunch, you feel like your lunch just got wasted. You don't rest. So then I remember asking my medical assistant in the afternoon. I was in this bad mood, and I was like, I got to do something to like snap myself out of it. One of my medical assistants, she is like always so positive, and like one of those like I'm like, well, your positivity is like toxic right now, you know? So I was like, okay, I was like, well, you're positive. You have a good attitude. I need a good attitude right now. Like, can you say something to like snap me out of it? And then she thought about it. She's like, remember, this is just a job. So that was the script that she gave me. I was like, yeah, she's right. This is just a job. Just a job. So then the whole afternoon, I was basically quietly quitting. Like, this is just, I'm just here to collect a paycheck. This isn't just my job. But here's the thing, like, this isn't just a job. Like, the whole thing that we do in medicine, like our entire identity, like the reason why we become doctors isn't just to be here and collect a paycheck. This was never meant to be just job. This was our passion. This is our calling. This is like part of our identity. Of course, in a way to avoid being exploited by capitalism in that sense, yes, it's a job and we should get paid to like the job that we do. But in the sense of like personal journey and identity and who we always set out to be, this was always more than a job. But for us to like have to think that way, to quietly quit our own passion, our own dream, that's what the system had designed to. They wanted us to feel this way. So we can spill that over to patient care, and patient will see us in a negative light. In a way, we're so pitted against each other all the time, and we don't even see it.
Yeah, and like, and then it comes out in these like, I don't know, press Gainey scores and like how frustrated patients are with you.
Yeah.
And I know. And you talk about like if I wanted just a job, I would have done something very different with my life.
Oh, what would you have done?
Many different choices. I don't know. That's why I became a doctor. I was like, I can't think of anything else. But it's also
I feel like there are many choices. There are like a gazillion choices that would have required less training and then less liability, less stress, and likely even more money. But anyway, we're all here.
Well, right. And I think this is also part of where whether something's just a job, like I wanted a life of meaning. And that was part of what drew me to medicine and to be willing to be, at the intersection of human suffering, which, listen, I can shut down a cocktail party immediately. Just ask me what I do for a living. But, but it is very frustrating because I think we all thought it was going to function differently by the time we got to this point. And unfortunately, it feels like instead we're really in free fall.
Yeah. I'm writing this book. I think part of Consented is sort of my own reckoning to change, right? Like I'm learning. I know I'm a young physician. I am like nowhere near maturation as a professional or as a person. So I'm continuously learning. And so it's almost Consented is a call out of the harmful culture, but also is a declaration of who I really want to be. And I feel like once the book is out, a lot of people around me read the book, including my team members. So sometimes when I get frustrated and you kind of resort back to like the way that we were trained, sometimes I catch myself thinking, oh, that was a non-compliant patient. Oh, that was a difficult patient. And then I was like, oh crap, like that's literally what I was just writing against. Like now, if I really think that way, behave that way, people around me are gonna be like, you wrote a whole book about this, and like right now you're being a hypocrite. So I think like just having like holding up a mirror as your work at campus, sharing that goal with the people around you is really helpful, and they'll help keep you accountable. I also feel like in a way that my patients, I serve a patient population that are very vulnerable, very underserved. They are I probably like majority of my patients are immigrants, and many of them are uninsured, and majority are on Medicaid or Medicare. So patients already feel very disenfranchised, and then by definition, by default, a lot of our medical assistants are bilingual, and they are Latino, Latina, and they are from that same community, and they might be just one generation or even half a generation removed from that trauma of like being the immigrant who had to like fight for a living. So in a way, I think like um, I'm already an outsider in my community, right? Like I obviously look differently, I sound differently. So giving my team the power to call me out when I uh, resort to the back to the old way of thinking of medical gaslighting and patient blaming, in a way gives them power to protect their own community. And I think that's the type of humility that like that that will change encounters, for your assistants to be able to say, listen, I think you need to take a step back, or like, listen, I think this is not what this patient meant. This was culturally different than what you assume it to be. And to give them power to say something like that, I think that is huge. And I've been so humbled through so many interactions.
And what I hear you saying too is that you've empowered the people who are around you, that you work with, the people that you clearly respect their opinions and their wisdom. You're really saying like you're letting them call you back to who you actually want to be.
Yes. And I think they want to see me in that light, right? Like, don't like they want to see the person who comes into their community, their neighborhood, seeing their cousins, their family members. They want to see me to be that idealistic person who I really set out to be. I think it's heartwarming for them to know that I have not been so calloused to a point that I have forgotten who I wanted to be. And isn't that comforting for someone that like is seeing your community member to be the person that you can be proud of as part of the team member of. So I think gradually I see more and more their family members, and sometimes I get like patients who are like, oh, like my niece and nephew work with you and they said I should come and see you. That's a huge honor. It's like, yeah, it's like that's the life of a country doctor, to be able to like see families and then like families, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really special. Thank you for sharing that with us and being so humble about, we're all flawed in so many ways. And I think one of the challenges in clinical medicine is that you're kind of just pushed to the worst aspects of yourself in that system. And so it's really, really hard to resist because of all the pressures that we've talked about. Um, anyway, so I think it's admirable that you're actively fighting all of those pressures because it's not easy.
It's not easy. And let's face it, like, I don't think doctors, like, we're not known to be like the most humble people in the world. Like, it's the one way to ruin a cocktail party when you're like, I am a whole doctor. So I think like, sometimes even just with a little bit of humility, sometimes I'm like, I didn't even think that was humility. And people are like, oh, you're so humble. I'm like, okay, that's how low the bar is for doctors. Let's do something about it. Sometimes I'm like, is that sarcasm? Like, did you really think I was humble? Like, I thought I was.
I wonder, you have such an interesting background in your childhood that you've written about before with your mom. And I wondered if you might be willing to share some of that with our listeners who might not be familiar with that story.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for asking. I feel like that's sort of my story of origin. I grew up in China, and this was the late 80s, late 90s. Wow, I thought I was 10 years younger than who I am. Anyway, late 90s, late 80s, and then we had the one-child policy for people who don't know. During that period of time, people were only allowed to have one child, and so and then my parents' generation were the ones who were not permitted to go to school. They were utterly uneducated. And then suddenly, my generation, there's only one child. And then the economy was looking up and the demand was higher and everybody was looking to become more educated. Everyone was supposed to be changing their family trees. And now that person who changes the family tree becomes that one person. So everyone is under tremendous pressure to perform and to do well and to like compete. So that's sort of the background. And when I was born, I was misdiagnosed with cerebral palsy, or as the doctors put it, that I was going to be stupid. And that's no, I obviously do not think anyone who has any kind of brain like illness or any kind of neurological illnesses are anything like stupid. But this was the word that was used to describe to my uneducated mother, to help her realize that was going to happen to me. So my family decided, against my mom's consent, that they were going to give me up for adoption. So I was a few weeks old and in this like a state lockdown facility, ready to be adopted out, when my mother, who was a few weeks postpartum, decided she was going to steal me out of the hospital. So middle of the night, she climbed over the lockdown hospital wall and snuck into the hospital and like tried to steal me out. Of course, the room was locked, so she couldn't really get in, but she got into the hallway, and then she like, according to her, there was like a whole room of babies, brain damaged babies in the unit and waiting to be adopted. And apparently, as soon as her footsteps become apparent, only one baby cried, and she looked at it and she saw that was me. So the next day, she came to the hospital. She signed, remember the AMA form? She signed me against medical advice, but she also had to talk to the police officers because apparently trying to steal a baby out of a state hospital was a crime. So anyway, she was confessing to the police officer, and they were like, "Why are you doing this? She's going to be stupid. She can't support you. She won't take care of you. She'll never amount to anything." And then my mom says, she's not stupid because stupid babies don't recognize their mother's footsteps and cry. And she did that. So she signed all the papers there was, and like she threw the pen back to the faces of these doctors and police officer, and she got me out of there. So that was the story of how my mom stole me out of the hospital.
She's a hero.
She's great.
And to go up against, I mean, not only, cultural norms at the time, but up against her own family and then up against the state. How lucky we are that your mom did all that.
Yeah, and to really think about it, sometimes I'm like, there has to be a cohesive storyline of my life, right? All these like random thing has happened. What's the storyline here? Now I think about it. My mom's consent was never obtained. She was not informed. It was she literally. I mean, she protested, so she like literally did not give her consent. She said no, and her no was not taken as a no, and that was working. That was against 2,000 years of patriarchy. It was cultural. It was historical. It was sexism. It was all the things that I today write about. In a way, mm, this book has really come a full circle for me. And I dedicate also in the front and the beginning of the book, I dedicate the book to my mother, who fought for her own consent, her own autonomy, and so that I could have my own bodily autonomy.
And I mean, that's incredible. And it's also, I think, relevant to the work you're doing now in that she didn't just accept the words of these doctors. Like she felt that they were wrong.
Yeah.
And she followed her conviction. I mean, this is a thing we see a lot with patients, right? Where they
Yes.
are given information they feel is not accurate or a diagnosis that they feel is not correct. And then if they have the capacity, will fight it. And so that's also what your mom was
Yeah.
doing.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that. She was the expert in me, in her
Mhm.
own baby. Today I read a weekly newsletter called Ask the Patient, because I believe when we don't know, when things aren't certain, well, we need to turn to the expert in the room, the expert who's lived in the body of the person we're trying to help for decades, like longer than we have for sure. And
Mhm.
so they are the experts. We need to be asking them. And she was the expert in our relationship and her faith in me. Um, and she demanded to be believed, and she should have been believed.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that bit about, patients being the experts on their bodies. I wonder what you think about I see a lot of chatter online about patients trying to figure out how to show up in a way that isn't going to upset the doctor when they are they spent a lot of time, to your point, thinking about the symptoms that they've had, and they read books or read websites or whatever to try to figure out what they think is their problem. Sometimes people have a binder of lists of events and lab values and so on. But what a lot of patients will report is that if they show up totally informed and totally organized, that they meet resistance.
Yes.
And so they try to figure out how to basically trick the doctor
Mhm.
into giving them the diagnosis because they don't want to, upset the doctor. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that sort of situation and how we can be better at listening to these patients who have put so much time and effort into understanding what their problem is.
Yeah, that's such a powerful example, because I sometimes the more people do, the more informed they are, the more the labels come, right? Like the
Mhm,
more
mhm,
the more we say that they are um, like self-sabotaging, they're non-compliant, they are dramatic, all these things. So and sometimes I get asked like, what's your advice on for patients who like how can they better advocate for themselves? And I think I know what I hear from you is that that's not what you're thinking. That's not all three of us were not thinking that question. Because all three of us, we know patients have been doing a lot of advocating. They've been doing advocating for themselves all their lives. They find ways to advocate. They act, they perform, they bring a friend, they phone a friend, like
mhm,
they do all
mhm.
these things. It's time for us to meet them halfway. So fundamentally, I think the first thing that we do is we have to we gotta believe the patient. Period. Like no more negotiation, no more gaslighting, no more like negotiation. We believe the patient the first time they say something is wrong. And when we don't know, we can have a conversation, we can look things up, we can look things together, we can have an ongoing process. The bottom line is that is part of consenting. Whatever we're doing with the patients, that is the ongoing trust building process that I talk about in my book, Consented, because all of that is that consent, is that trust building. So without that, we're just not gonna go anywhere. And the assumption that people like, I think the assumption that people don't know the medical facts. I mean, that could be potentially that could be right, but today's technology and the very if COVID-19, even like the pandemic ever taught us anything, is that there's so much out there that we don't know. So why couldn't the patient have spent more time and know better, know more medical facts than we have? Like, why is that so inconceivable? It's possible. And bottom line is that they are, whatever they know, they don't know, they know better about their bodies than we do. They lived in there every day. I also think I want like listeners to sort of take heart in the conversation that we're having now. I think, in the beginning of the conversation, I called you guys like professional troublemakers, but I think we're making good trouble, right? We're challenging authority, we're challenging ourselves. We're asking the question, like, who wrote these medical textbooks? And then we go back to history and we study who wrote them. It's not people who look like us. Like, we didn't define these things, so it's time that we redefine these things together. Like, when it's not enough for us to just be in medicine, we have to be more than just present. We got to be the ones who like define, and we have to direct. We have to discover, which is what I think you both are doing so brilliantly. I look up to both of you for having these conversations, for doing the advocacy work that you do out there, to name the monster that we're all fighting against, so we can have a common language to come out of this nightmare together.
Thank you. That's
Yeah, there are many of us out here.
We're always looking for our people. That was,
Yes.
we're always looking for other folks who are interested in challenging the status quo and, inviting each other into that opportunity to be like, well, what do we want this experience to be like? What kind of care do we want to be able to provide for patients? And how can we learn not only from our patients, but from each other, how to make things better day by day? So, Dr. Zha, what are you working on now?
So I am actually working on a graphic memoir of my mother's story. I'm working with Pan Cook, who is a graphic cartoonist artist who is based in Ireland, and he has a really big platform. And he most of his work is focused on social justice. And so we're working together to create a graphic memoir, and hopefully that project is going to go on submission to the editors after this in a few months, and hopefully we will. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that Michelle Yu hears about the story, because like in my kung fu movie version of my mother's heroic story, Michelle Yu is like my mother. So the more we talk about it, the more likely she'll actually take the role eventually when the movie comes out.
You got to manifest it.
Yeah, let's keep talking about it.
I love that. I wonder too, before we move on to wrapping up, because I know we're running out of time. I just thought it might be helpful to our listeners if you could give like a sentence or two about what they can expect to get out of reading your book.
I think they can expect to gain insight into how human we all are and how desperately we all want to become each other's fellow human beings. I also take so much pride and joy in writing. At the end of every chapter, there is a speculative fiction component where I dream a future of consent culture, where medicine is rooted deeply in consent and in personalized medicine and in patient autonomy, with no negotiation, and we're all held accountable, and we all are willing to admit mistakes, or are willing to help each other out to become more human and more honest. And in a world where patient autonomy is the utmost important thing, trust building is the entirety of medicine itself. And so I hope that by reading the book, I know the topics in my book are heavy, and I know sometimes it could be a little bit hard to get through. But at the end of every chapter, there's going to be a call to imagine a better future together. I think in that fiction piece, people can dream a little like hopeful future with me together, and that's my little invitation for everyone.
I love that. Thank you.
It's fabulous. Well, we like to finish each of our episodes with something called Take Two and Call Us in the Morning. And it is where we provide a prescription to our audience of, something joyful, something that is, getting you through this week.
Great. I'm getting ready for that.
We've got a dog on camera.
Special alert. We have a dog.
This is my editor-in-chief. This is Moshi Moshi.
Oh my goodness. Does Moshi like long walks? Is he a ball guy?
Yeah, she likes to backpack. And she likes to stand in front of camera so that all the attention is on her, obviously. And she also she also needs a haircut. And she likes her teeth brushed. So my prescription for everyone to have a little fun is to you have an animal that will have teeth. Maybe a couple times a week, try brushing their teeth. It's hilarious when they spit their like chicken liver flavored toothpaste in your face. Very, very healing. Oh, her face. She knows what I'm talking about. Show them your teeth. So you got good teeth, good, really clean teeth.
Oh, look at those beautiful teeth. So brushed. So brushed.
She's like, thanks, Mom. Thanks for violating my bodily autonomy just now.
My little dog is very resistant to having her teeth brushed, but we're working on it. But she did just last week allow me to trim her toenails. She let me give her a mani-pedi, which usually it takes two people and it's a whole thing. And last week she was like, I'll let you with another treat. I will allow it. So we're making progress. I have confidence for the toothbrushing.
Yeah, and then you know what? Everybody could be humbled by a little bit of spitting in your face.
Just a little bit.
There is a woman, just because you mentioned mani-pedi, there is a woman who does actual manicures for her dog, and she does ladybugs for the spring, and she does flowers, and she does honeycombs, and it's pretty impressive because she has she's even done artificial nails for the dog. Anyway, she has a whole, it's like a spa routine, right? She has these cleansing things and it's just a whole
soothing to watch.
Yeah, a whole fancy spa routine for this dog. Anyway, I'll put a link to one of those videos in our show notes. But Alyssa, how about you? What's your what do you prescribe for folks this week?
All this talk about dogs, I feel like I just completely lost my train of thought. Well,
I can do my other one was also going to be a dog one.
Great.
So, there's this guy who does voiceovers for videos of, I don't know if only dogs. I don't know this person very well, but the videos I've seen have been with dogs. And so it's the ones that I've seen that are really funny are there's these two dogs in a little pool, and the ball that they were chasing, right, is in the pool, at the bottom of the pool. And they're staring at the ball. And then one of the dogs every once in a while puts his snout just under the water, not under enough to reach the ball, mind you. But just
he's maybe.
He's thinking about it. Yeah. And so this guy has narrated the whole thing where the one dog, I'm gonna do it right now. And the other one's like, it's not gonna happen, bro. And then he's like, it's gonna happen. I just need to hold my breath. And then you can't do it. And anyway, it's really fantastic. And I will put a link to one of those videos. There are many by this gentleman. I'll put the link to one of them in there, and they reference their mom and dad, and there's the inner lives of dogs is what this man is imagining, and it's hilarious. Anyway, hopefully that gave you time to think of whatever your original.
So one of the things I had been wanting to tell you about, it's not dogs, but it's animal related. It was this carousel on Instagram of how to avoid stress, advice from a goose. Have you guys seen this?
No.
And it's basically it's a photo of a goose. I'm going to say being pretty aggressive. Like it looks like there's a honk happening like at the camera, really intense. It says, don't bottle things up. Honk immediately, preferably in public. Start every morning by screaming at absolutely nothing. Clears the chest.
Wait, is this a goose or a toddler?
It's a goose, but you could definitely also replace it with a toddler. It's a solid point. Take regular breaks. Stand near water. Look furious. Heel. Anyway, it goes on and on. It's very funny. Do not let your toddler stand by the water, though.
When you say heel, my dog thinks my dog is like, oh, am I healing?
You better give Moshi a treat for, immediately complying.
There's also, the last dog related thing I'll say is that there's an audio going around. It's from a video a guy posted, but he says it's something like, life is really hard. And then sometimes there's a dog. And that's like the best thing. It's like, then there's a dog. Period. And the dog makes everything better. There's it's a longer audio, but that's how it starts. Is like, life is hard. And then sometimes there's a dog. It's an ode to dogs, if you will. Anyway,
lovely. We don't deserve dogs.
Sorry to all the cat lovers who are listening.
Oh yeah, we love dogs. We
got a dog heavy crew today.
Toddlers are fine.
Anyway, I think that's it. Zed, I'll just shoot it back to you for 1 second. If there's anything else you wanted to add, anything that we didn't ask you about, or anything else you wanted to share.
No, I think that was great. I had so much fun. Thank you for asking about my mom. I was like, this is not where I'm going to cry. This is a serious topic here.
Well, it's such an incredible story, and thank you for sharing it with us, and thank you for writing your book and sharing that with us as well. The book, again, is called Consented, and it's available for purchase. That is it for this week's episode. If you didn't like what you heard, this has been the Candace Podcast. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to The Present Illness. Leave us a review, tell other folks to listen, leave us a rating. Whatever you can do will help us get seen by more people.
You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at The Present Illness to stay on top of all of our TPI-related news.
And we will be back next week with more headlines, hot takes, and doom scrolling, hopefully wrapped in some laughs.
Until then, agitate, hydrate, take a nap. We'll see you next time on The Present Illness. Production by Arghavan, Salles, and Alyssa Burgart. Editing by Alyssa Burgart. Social media by Arghavan, Salles. Original music by Joseph Uphoff. Don't take medical advice from random people on a podcast. This show's for informational purposes. It's meant to be fun, and it's certainly not medical advice. Please take your medical questions to a qualified professional. This podcast is our hobby. It does not represent the opinions of our employers or anyone but ourselves.